Hey folks, just wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about why the nutritional guidelines in the UK are a lot like the game Jenga. Now, the reason this video has come about is I've had some debates recently on social media, particularly on Twitter, about people who claim that they followed the guidelines, they gained weight, and ultimately went on to develop type 2 diabetes. Now, very unfortunate for them. However, really, I wonder if they truly were following the guidelines down to a T. And as you find, as we go through our analogy here, all the guidelines are very much intertwined, whereas we tend to think of them as individual recommendations. But really, as one starts to give way, the others need to be adjusted. So without further ado, let me just take you through it. So just got them jotted down here, so just to help remind me. So the first one, so let's look at 30 grams a day fibre. So we know that the population in the UK is nowhere near this 30 grams of fibre. It used to be 18 grams, but as more evidence was published, we actually increased the recommendations. And your good source of the fibre is primarily your fruit and vegetables, your whole grains, your beans, your pulses, your lentils. And we're not eating enough of it. So if you're someone that's not getting that 30 grams of fibre, we can see that we remove a block. Now the foundation is a lot less stable. So if I gave that a knock, it's going to fall over a lot easier compared to before. All right. Now tying in with that, another recommendation that we have is 5 a day fruit and vegetables minimum. And it's the minimum part that we tend to miss out. So if you're anything like me growing up and you get to 3 a day and you say close enough, it's not enough. And really the message is 5 a day minimum is just a starting point. The evidence is quite clear that when you start to get to 7, 9, 12 a day, maybe not everyone will be getting to 12 a day, but the benefits just keep stacking up, which is why you also always see different reports in the media about the goalpost moving with that. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 9. But if we're not even hitting 5 a day, let's not start trying to get people to 7 straight away. Let's take one step at a time. So if you're not getting your 5 a day, again, I'm really bad at Jenga, so I don't want to knock this over. I know holding it's cheating. We can remove another one. Now the foundation is less stable. Another one is portion control. If you're gaining weight, it means you're probably not exercising enough, or you're not managing your portions correctly, you're eating too much. So I've got my plate here. Now, hopefully you can see that, but you can see actually what the portions are is actually quite a small amount. Now, in reality, if you're moving around and meeting the physical activity recommendations, you could probably open this out. But for someone that's pretty inactive, you don't need a huge amount of food. And you can also see that half of that plate should be vegetables, a quarter to starchy carbohydrates, and a quarter to protein. And I know for a fact from working in clinical practice, often that distribution is completely different. Mostly carbs, mostly protein, a little bit of veg. Some people don't get those in their diet at most meals, and actually sometimes it can be even a once a week thing. So of course, this is the carbs and the protein, that's where the calories are, so that's how it starts to accumulate. So if you're having too larger portions, again, we start to remove another block and the foundations become much more unstable. Moving on to exercise. So we know the recommendations are 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 2 days of which should be resistance training based. Now the part of that message that's missed out, you probably guessed it, is minimum. That is the bare minimum. So that's good for health benefits, but in terms of weight loss or weight loss maintenance, it doesn't really touch the sides. And you really see it in people who aren't able to achieve physical activity in their daily life because of mobility or health problems. They struggle really badly to lose weight or manage their weight. So you wouldn't expect really to go to work and do the bare minimum, or go to the gym and do the bare minimum and expect to get all the benefits or the gains or get the promotion. So really, when we're talking about exercise, it's a case of the more the better. The more active you are, the more margin of error you have with your diet. As you get less active, then you need to eat less. So there's no use not being very active and then not adapting the diet accordingly. And actually, this is a lot of the patients that I see, and with these debates on Twitter, I can almost guarantee you they weren't doing enough physical activity, but still following the guidelines otherwise. But as we can see, we need to adjust. Another one, limit highly processed foods. So that's kind of things like ready meals, to limit things like salt, sugar, fat. Follow food labelling guidelines, looking at the traffic light system, so trying to avoid the red column, going more for the greens. Trying to limit sugar, so SACN recommendations, which is just an authority body that produces guidelines, is 30 grams of added sugar per day, which isn't a whole lot really. particularly if you have a couple of sugars in your tea, and you have maybe 4 teas a day, it really quickly starts to add up, and anything above and beyond is just really empty calories. Or you might perhaps save it up for the week and then have a big blowout on the weekend, but we're thinking in averages here. So it doesn't matter if you save it up, the average over the week still needs to be 30 grams or less of added sugar per day. So again, with those types of foods, I know they're delicious, and I for one do like them, but we just need to be careful with them. And if you're not, then it gets a little less steady, and then we need to adjust our intake elsewhere. And in tying in with that, it's also other foods like fast food and takeaways. Yeah, they might only be once in a while, but they are loaded with calories. So it's very easy to start overeating on those and undoing all the good work you might have done throughout the week. So if they're appearing too frequently in the diet, starting to wobble, you can see that it's starting to get very unsteady now. Another one that's often ignored is alcohol. So this isn't going to be a lecture on the health consequences of drinking too much. I think we're all pretty much aware of that. But really, with alcoholic drinks, they are absolutely stuffed full of calories. So a pint of beer is about 200 calories, a medium-sized glass of wine is about 180, a strong cider can be up to 300, and a spirit 25ml measure is around 50 calories. So you get a bit more bang for your buck with the spirits. I'm not saying that you should take up a healthy spirit habit. But what you can see is that if you go out and have maybe 4 pints of a weekend, or even drink a bit more regularly than that, yes, you're exceeding the units that we recommend in the UK if you're drinking too regularly, but also you are having an awful lot of calories, and they're going to add up. It's called beer belly for a reason. So again, we have to remove a block and see what happens. It's going to fall. Oh, nearly went. And the final one that gets a lot of scrutiny that I just want to talk about, just because I don't want to make this video too long, is the fat recommendations. So we recommend that you have around 70 grams of fat per day, which is about a third of your dietary intake, 30%. So when we say low fat messages, or they are interpreted as low fat, actually it's just about having the right amount of fat. It's not saying don't have any fat. In fact, a third of your calories a day should be from fat. So that's not low fat now, is it? It's just the right amount. But the problem with fat is you can overeat on it really easy because it's 9 calories per gram. And a prime example is something like nuts. So nuts, really healthy food, great for you, healthy oils, good protein source. But the problem is they have a lot of calories because of the fat content. So it's very easy to overeat on them. So it's not about having no fat, it's about just having the right amounts and watching how much you're having, because particularly if you're inactive, having lots of takeaways, eating too much sugar, not managing your portions, not doing enough exercise, etc., then it's very easy to start putting on weight, and that can lead to health consequences. And actually, so then if you're having a high fat diet on top of it, you can see, oh, amazing, I might give a little encouragement. You can see it comes crashing down. So that's just a quick video, guys, just to hopefully help you picture it in your minds, how these guidelines all intertwine. If you start to remove blocks, the foundations get less steady, and then you need to adapt. So don't just follow the guidelines blindly. That's what they're there for. That's what I call guidelines. So they're guidelines to help lead you. It doesn't mean you have to follow them without any interpretation. So if you're really struggling to manage your diabetes or manage your weight, you're more than welcome to like the page, diabetesdietguide.com, or also drop me an email or a message. All my details are found on the site. I'm more than happy to help people. And I also have a Facebook page, so check me out on Facebook, like the page, and it's a nice community. People can ask questions, and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks a lot.